See. On the phone, I think it is U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Ooh, good morning, Paul. We are extremely tired. It's hard to lose a night's sleep, and especially when you're just fighting the battle every moment, trying to stop the madness that's happening in Washington.
As, we never think about this, but there's a lot of personal emotion that I understand you carry at that position. And it's frustrating when you just don't have the power. And I think it's even probably more frustrating when you're that close, just trying to hold out hope to change one single solitary mind, and you can't do it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And exhaustion on top of that really makes it frustrating. But to sit there and, everybody has differences of opinions. Mm-hmm. But as adults and elected officials, we need to come in and look what's best for the country and negotiate every paragraph. And that just doesn't happen. Yeah. I mean, you have done a really good job this morning of covering this bill, and it is just amazing that it's called the Inflation Reduction Act, because it is truly just totally the opposite. And when you have the congressional budget offices coming in warning Democrats and Republicans, this is not what we need. Of course, Paul, I am just a fiscal conservative, and I want less government in my life, and we need to be cutting taxes, not raising taxes. And it is so emotionally draining to sit there and fight for Mississippi. And when you're just getting outvoted, and then I sat there and watched Kamala Harris come in and break, the tiebreaker. She voted to pass this nonsense. And, when you're looking at exactly what it's going to do to this country, it's going to, when you go from a $12.6 billion budget for the IRS, is what it currently is now, and you watch the bill pass to increase that same budget to the amount, more than 6 times the current budget, $80 billion.
People who haven't heard this, Senator, let me give them the numbers. You're right. $80 billion. This is additional $80 billion in funding to hire as many as 87,000 additional employees, not police to put them on our street, 87,000 additional employees. The increase would more than double the size of the IRS workforce, which now already has 78,661 full-time staffers. But here's where it really gets even more frightening. The majority of the new revenue, IRS audits and scrutiny, will come from our people and businesses, small businesses and individuals who make less than $200,000 a year. This is according to the nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation. So if you thought it was going after only the millionaires, billionaires, committee found that just 4 to 9% of the money raised, which is $200 billion or whatever, is going to come from people in that 200,000 or less, and only 4 to 9% will be raised from people who make more than $500,000, regardless of what Joe Biden lies about.
You're exactly right. And, manufacturers, they're going to be hit the worst. You're just going to see, and I'm not a gloom and doom person, but I remember 08 and 09 really well. And you're going to go back to looking at people laying folks off of their jobs because they simply can't cash flow whatever they're manufacturing and meet these demands as well and pay these taxes. So, and the sad thing is, if some of it was going to clerks and things that can answer the telephone, but despite all this new money, you don't expect better IRS service. In the 2022 filing season, the IRS answered a mere 10% of its calls. They're still not even back at work. And, we file these amendments and we file these procedures to say, you're not going to get a dime. Everybody comes back to work and you just watch it fail. And, it's just listening to the taxpayer advocate services and what they are saying, and it's happening in unprocessed paper tax returns. That it's very frustrating because my office gets a lot of calls from people saying, I filed my tax returns on time, I already have, I can't get everybody on the phone, I don't have my return. And to think that we're spending money in that agency, but it's just going after Americans who they want to audit.
Yeah.
And
it boggles my mind that they're still not back at work. Oh, it's a limited time here, but I want to get a couple of sound bites in, and I do want to go to the insulin cap here. But first of all, Joe Manchin, who has, I think, lost a lot of credibility. And Joe Manchin's got to be looking at this, too. New survey that he's going to wake up with this morning shows a dismal 12% of Americans believe this bill, this Democrat-sponsored bill, is going to actually reduce inflation. Only 12%.
Let me start with something you said back in 2010 in the debate when you were running for Senate. Here's what you said.
I don't think during a time of recession you mess with any of the taxes or increase any taxes.
So that's become your Republican colleague's favorite quote to roll out now that you've made this agreement with Chuck Schumer that has a tax piece to it. Why'd you change your mind?
John, I didn't change my mind. I've never changed at all. This is fighting inflation. This is all about the absolute horrible position that people are in now because of the inflation cost, whether it be gasoline, whether it be food pricing, whether it be energy pricing. And it's around energy mostly is driving these high inflation. This is going to take care of that because this is aggressively producing more energy to get more supply to get the prices down. That's
he sold out for a couple of things, and I'm not sure where the political contributions are going to come from, but he sold out for some minor, was it a pipeline or something in West Virginia?
There were several discussions taking place because I have to be real careful how I say this.
Yeah, I know.
The bills that were being cut and the things that would benefit that state. But when you have two senators from the same state, Shelley Capito's from West Virginia, and she is like, Joe, what are you thinking? Why are you doing this to our state? That's when I get to witness these things of one voting one way and the other one voting completely the opposite when they're from the same state that they're doing that.
Well,
85% of the Americans, including 78% of Democrats, think the country is going in the wrong direction. These guys are seeing these polls. They're seeing this information and these reports just the way we are. But the heartbreak, Paul, is that we have folks right now that are just struggling to keep up with the cost of living. And with these inflation, this 9.1 inflation rate, the thing that just screams at me is these are the same people that gave us the American Rescue Plan.
Yeah.
And, look
and also shovel-ready jobs, but I don't want to go back that far. And we're going to run out of time before we've got a break, but I want to cover this because you talk about split decisions within your own delegation here. You and Roger Wicker did not agree on these insulin caps. It was a little bit confusing, but I finally figured it out with a little help here. And I do not understand Roger Wicker's process and thought on here. Would you explain to the general public what this insulin cap amendment was about?
Well, we were trying to override the parliamentarian, and it was a procedural vote. It really was. I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere, but I have worked so hard to try to reduce the cost of insulin that, if you can do something that would make that less, $35 a month, you're not going to see me vote against anything like that. But it truly was a procedural vote. The Democrats wanted to get the Republicans on record because they, just saying that they voted against that, it wasn't going to change anything. The Byrd rule, which sets, it would set the price in a commercial market, and therefore it couldn't pass it could pass by a simple majority. So what we were doing was trying to override the parliamentarian.
I understand that.
Yes.
I do understand that. But still, if they had enough votes, if enough Republicans voted, you're saying it still wouldn't have changed anything on the cap?
Well, it would have, but it would have been challenged. It would have definitely
but for that matter, though, you still had Republicans. So I'll have to ask him. I'm going to try to get that from you. But what was the mindset of Roger Wicker for doing that? So we'll take it up with him. Final segment. We'll have another segment with Cindy Hyde-Smith coming up next. Our visit with Cindy Hyde-Smith, U.S. Senator, managing your home mortgage to home equity line of credit. Trustmark is there with people you trust, advice that works. Member FDIC, and from the Trustmark studios, it is U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. Cruz did a good job there, but there's just so much about this bill. Where do we go from here? Because there's no hope in the House to stop that, is it?
Oh, no, I think it's going to go through the House. And Ted is exactly right. In this bill, there's actually a fee on every barrel of oil that is imported in here. And then they're going, they've already begged Russia, so many Venezuela, Saudi Arabia to send us more oil. But then they put a fee on that same oil that's coming in. So, if it wasn't bad enough, this is just nothing but a tax on top of inflation. So it is serious. I wish that we did have a little hope in the House, but they're going to go through the same thing that we've gone through, and it's so agonizing. I mean, we started voting at 12 o'clock on Saturday. We stayed all night. We went through midnight. At 5 o'clock, the sun started coming up out the windows of the Capitol. We're still in there fighting until 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. So, we felt very defeated, and then the celebration and the clapping on the floor when Kamala came in and actually did the tie-breaking vote. But we have had a few successes, and I know we talk about gloom and doom, but when we're talking about insulin, when we're talking about medications, Paul, on the drug Restasis, and I just want to share this to let you know that sometimes we do have wins. On Restasis is eye drops. And my mother got a bill for $459 is what she had to pay. And, I mean, the little tube is not but an inch tall, inch and a half at the most. I went to the Senate floor, and I had her receipt blown up from Hudson's Drugs of Monticello, Mississippi. I had that receipt blown up into a poster that's almost as tall as I am. I went to the Senate floor, and I wore them out on that for about 40 minutes. We got a call just in a 3 weeks that they had come out with a generic to Restasis. Had I not done that, we would not have a generic to Restasis of a $459 bottle of eye drops that's an inch and a half tall. So, I am very passionate about reasonable, sensible drug prescription prices. So we did have that win. I was told had I gone to the veterinarian, that same the same eye drops would have been $8. But my mother paid $459 for it. So, when you take those stories to the Senate floor and you are passionate, you are exhausted, but there is going to be a generic for that right now that the FDA would not approve before that time. And Elizabeth Henry, who worked for me, she just came in and she said, I've never had the FDA call this office when Senator Cochran was here or anybody else, but they just called and said, please sure to tell Senator Hyde-Smith that we just approved a generic. So we just have to keep fighting. You just have to keep battling this stuff. You have to be consistent. If you have to stay up all night, guess what? You just have to watch the sun come up and keep going. And so I'm still, we're operating on very little sleep. I did get a flight out of D.C. last night about 9:30. So I got in at midnight. I'm headed to Tupelo this morning. So you just can't stop. You have to keep fighting.
Well,
but
you have to reinvigorate the mind and the lungs and everything with some Mississippi air. So congratulations on that one. The hypocrisy. I was just sitting here thinking about the hypocrisy of these people by getting Kamala in real quick and all these. They had so many protocols on COVID in the Senate as well as the House, but they had a memo coming up right before this said throw every one of those things out the window. We're doing away with all of the protocols. You just make sure you're here. And I guess the indication was unless you're dead, you better be here. And then over the weekend, we found out that, and no surprise at all, that in a move that's not going to shock very many people, the Biden administration has decided to keep the emergency COVID measures in place through the 2022 midterms.
Well, they didn't have them on yesterday. And the thing is, how hypocritical. They quit testing. Democrats couldn't even get tested. They quit testing so they could have everybody there for the vote. And, and they did. They had to have all of their members there because they had to have their 50. And, but it is very hypocritical that they just quit testing, said, you've got to come no matter what, and for the battle. So it was definitely showdown at the OK Corral. Saturday night through Sunday, literally we were voting about 28 hours straight, But that's okay. I think that's what the people have elected me to go do, and that is no problem. I just, I pray every day for stamina, I pray for wisdom, and I pray for guidance. And, whatever we're doing and trying to catch a nap here and there, that did not happen. But we cannot give up the battle. But the thing that I want the listeners to hear right now, this is about elections. This is about that 50-50 vote that we've got to change. We have got to work as hard as we can possibly work to take over this majority to stop some of this madness, because that's the only thing that's going to happen. So if you know folks in these states like Arizona, Colorado, that, we have close races, please get active, contribute to other campaigns that we can win this back, because it's expensive to fight this battle. And what the money that the Democrats are raising is totally unbelievable. So I just ask everybody to get engaged. Elections matter. You have got to participate.
I saw where not only Stacey Abrams, the vast majority of money is coming not from Georgians. It's a very small amount of people who are contributing to her campaign in the state of Georgia, but also Joe Manchin. I was blown away by the very few people in West Virginia. Most of it's outside the state, big corporations and everything else that's funding Joe Manchin, and it is scary. But you are right, because in our lifetime as a boomer, and we say this to the younger generation, believe us, it's not hyperbole. We are seeing everything lining up, and the Democrats are doing. If you wanted to destroy this country, you could not do a better job than what they're doing.
It has to be designed. And then when they're talking about the tax incentives, if you go buy an electric car, $7,500, they took the cap off of it. Like, I think Tesla was limited to 200,000 units that they made that you could have tax incentives to buy. They took the cap off of that. But get this, it has to be, you have to have union workers to manufacture these. And all throughout this bill, it addresses union workers. Well, union workers normally vote Democrat so many times. So you can see the design that is happening here. Yep. The reason they're letting everybody in across the border. If we were spending some of this ridiculous money on making sure the border is secure, it would have been a whole lot easier to swallow, because I don't mind spending money on securing that border, because we know what's happening down there. They voted against every single amendment that we had to direct anything to the southern border. So we're just playing defense. We're trying to make this less bad, but none of this was less bad. I assure you, it was 100% destruction of this country. And, like I said, I am so positive. We live in the best country on planet Earth. I am so proud of this country. I love being from Mississippi, but we've got to step up and state it, too.
I think, just for the record, we had no Republicans vote on this bill at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Just wanted to put that on the record.
Even though we were totally exhausted by being on the floor 26, 27 hours straight, those no's were so strong. I mean, when they called that roll, it was like everybody, no. We were just totally defeated, and throwing everything aside that the Congressional Budget Office was saying, that anybody that both sides could trust, that was just thrown out the window, and they went for it.
When do you have to return to Washington?
Well, we are in a recess now. I'm traveling throughout the state. And the House, my understanding, they've been out this week, but my understanding is they go back Friday.
Yeah, they go back Friday.
Nancy Pelosi can get this passed. But we're in a recess right now for our normal August recess where we stay in the state.
We are out of time, and it has been informative. I thank you for taking the time at this short notice. I appreciate it. Get some rest.
Anytime. I'm willing to come on.